4. The mobile phone unit is 5 kilograms. That is to say, a customer needs to hold at least 5 contracts before he can enter the final delivery link. The quotation unit is the original MECA, which is priced in renminbi, and the minimum change price is 0.01 yuan per gram of the delivery month of the contract, which is also a different feature of our exchange and other international exchanges. That is, our contract is 1 to 12 months in a row, because the main users of boba in China are industrial users. The production and consumption and trade is basically continuous every month, so we provide monthly contracts to better help industrial users to use tools to hedge risks, and the trading time is from 9 o'clock to 11:30 in the morning of each trading day, and from 9 o'clock to 11:30 in the morning, and from 1:30 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So there are 4 hours of trading time every day. The last trading day is the 10th trading day of the contract month, and the last delivery day is the 3rd trading day after the last trading day. The delivery grade and delivery place are what I need to focus on in the second and third parts. Well, then I will start to introduce the requirements of delivery products. The delivery of platinum and daikin in GAC mainly includes 3 requirements: form, brand and quality. First of all, we allow 2 forms of delivery products, fixed and sponge, to enter the delivery. This is also one of our characteristics compared with other exchanges. Thin bamboo metal itself is the mainstream form of Dinghe sponge. In terms of industrial use, sponges are widely used, especially in Beijing, which is close to the state of sponge and consumption. Therefore, we have included sponges in the scope of delivery products of Guangzhou automobile boba. Compared with this, sponges are more convenient in storage, transportation, and trade circulation. Therefore, for a long time, the delivery products of major international exchanges are also metal ingots. By introducing some institutional innovations, we believe that some difficulties in the delivery of sponge titanium metal can be solved, which can also expand the scope of Guangzhou automobile boba futures to serve the national football industry. We mainly introduce the warehouse system on boba futures. It is a relatively mature system that has been running for many years in China's futures market and is widely used in agricultural products and minerals, as well as commodity futures. But when the warehouse system is introduced into precious metals, this is the first time that Guangzhou Automobile Exchange has introduced platinum. We allow boba of sponge tie to deliver goods through the factory warehouse mode. When customers receive goods, they pick up the goods directly in the factory. We believe that through the warehouse system, this mode can effectively solve the difficulty of delivery of sponge titanium, followed by this deep discount. Because we allow 2 forms of fixed and sponge to enter the delivery. Between different forms, we do not set a premium and discount at present, because we believe that the value of metal is mainly determined by its purity, not its form. The 2 forms can also be converted very conveniently, and the cost of conversion is relatively low. The second requirement for delivery products is that the delivery brand can only be registered as a registered brand approved by the exchange or a certified imported brand. For all delivery brands, we are exempted from inspection, and there is no need for inspection. Let's look at it in 2 ways. Our requirements for brands are based on the source of the goods. If it is a domestic boba, it must be a domestic registered brand approved by the exchange to be registered as a futures warehouse receipt. If it is imported boba, there are 2 situations here. One is that the imported boba itself is already a brand, which is also recognized by our GAC, as well as our Sirius brand. This is one situation. There is another situation. If the imported boba itself is not within the scope of the certified brand, it can also apply for the registered brand approved by our exchange separately. That is to say, for us, I have been asked a lot of questions. We have noticed that some domestic gold power plants have become certified brands. For domestic commemorative factories, it is actually applicable to the first situation, because it produces domestic boba. Although as a domestic precision power plant, it has been certified, it still needs to apply for a separate exchange to approve the domestic registered brand. This is an explanation of brand management. The main reason why we implement boba futures brand management is that the brand of precious metals is an important attribute. When the vast number of industrial users purchase raw materials, in addition to quality, they pay more attention to the brand. They have their own supplier library. So the implementation of the brand foundation in China's boba spot market is also relatively solid for this delivery brand. As long as it becomes our registered brand, there is no need for quality inspection at the time of registration, as long as the relevant quality certificates are provided. But the exchange will also regularly conduct spot checks on the goods in the warehouse. In this way, the quality of the goods delivered is in line with our regulations. The third requirement is the delivery quality standard, which is stipulated when Guangzhou Automobile Boba Futures enters the delivery. What kind of quality does its product need to meet, because our boba futures is managed by the whole brand? Therefore, the quality requirement is also the requirement for the quality of the goods of the manufacturers who want to apply for the registered brand of Guangzhou Automobile. That is to say, only when your product quality meets the requirements on our form can it meet the conditions for applying for the registered brand of Guangzhou Automobile. So when designing the delivery quality standard, we distinguish the product form and different sources. We stipulate the delivery quality standard separately because at present, there are two sets of standards in circulation in our domestic market. For domestic platinum group metals, the national standard is implemented. For imported platinum group metals, more standards are implemented. We respect this habit of our spot market, and it is reflected in our delivery quality standard. First of all, from the point of view of delivery quality standard, it is divided into three parts: purity, impurity content, and burning loss for purity, different forms and different sources. Our unified regulation is to exceed 99.95%, which is also a relatively common standard in the domestic market. For impurity content, it is necessary to distinguish between imported and domestic products. If it is a domestic registered brand, its impurity content must meet the requirements of China's national standards, because we have two forms of delivery products. So different forms of goods need to meet the corresponding national standards of different forms. If boating, you need to meet the national standards of boating, and if sponge bow, you need to meet the national standards of sponge bow. This is for domestic. For the content requirements of domestic magazines registered by the exchange. So for this brand, as long as it meets our requirements for impurity content, it is okay. At present, there is also our requirement for impurity content. The total amount should not exceed 0.05%. This is the requirement for impurity content. And then because we also include sponge peptide, there is an additional index of burning loss. For this index, it is also stipulated to distinguish between domestic and imported sources. For domestic products, it should not be less than 0.1%, according to the requirements of the national standard. For imported goods, it should not be less than 0.05%. What I just introduced is a commodity delivered by boba, the requirements of quality, brand and form. Next, I will introduce the location of boba futures delivery. The design idea of our delivery area is to set it in the main production and consumption areas in China, and in the main production areas of import locations. It includes Gansu, Hunan, Jiangxi, Hubei and Yunnan. The production here includes primary minerals and recovery. Then the main consumption and import areas include Beijing, Zhejiang, Shanghai, Jiangsu, and Guangdong. The provinces and cities mentioned above are the delivery areas of boba futures that we intend to set up. Because boba is a precious metal, its storage and transportation freight is actually very low, accounting for a relatively small proportion of the value of goods. So we do not set up this location between different provinces and cities, or the premium and discount of the region. No matter which province or city you are in, as long as the loss on our list is delivered, it is carried out at the same price. Next, we will introduce a delivery system of bobo. Because GAC Saboba futures are delivered in kind, that is, when entering the delivery month, the seller actually needs to deliver the actual metal to the buyer at last, so there are two specific forms of delivery. One is warehouse delivery, and the other is warehouse delivery, and it is divided into different forms, and the applicable delivery methods are also different. For the definition, warehouse can also be delivered, and then warehouse can also be delivered, because its surface has a very clear brand logo and product number, plus the quality certificate. We think it is safe enough under the mode of warehouse delivery, which can ensure the authenticity of the formula and the quality can also be guaranteed, but we still set up some additional checks on the warehousing link to further ensure that the quality of the metal entering the delivery warehouse is in line with the requirements of GAC. Specifically, for the domestic boba ding, we require that when the warehouse is delivered, it must be handled by the personnel of the brand manufacturer who has filed with the exchange. This is a requirement for warehouse delivery in the country of origin, and then for imports. At present, we only allow the platinum purchased from the gold exchange to be directly converted from spot to futures warehouse receipts without shipment. This is limited to boba ding. There is one more way. You can use the table in the lower left corner of the following table. Warehouse delivery is domestic platinum. Domestic 8 ingots and imported platinum ingots can be delivered in the warehouse. Then the production-oriented warehouse, that is, the refinery can deliver domestic bobati in the refinery. Then the trade-oriented warehouse. The so-called trade-oriented warehouse means that if the trader becomes a trade-oriented output estimate of GAC, it can deliver domestic bobati and imported bobati. This is an explanation of the way of delivery of bobati. Then for sponge products, as I introduced earlier, we only allow delivery in the factory warehouse. The main consideration is that it is easier to change the packaging of sponge, and the risk is relatively high, and his respect is not like the definition. It can be confirmed by weighing directly. So we think it is more risky to deliver sponge in the warehouse. We put sponge in the warehouse delivery method. Specifically, it is also divided into domestic and imported domestic sponges. Domestic sponges can be delivered by the commemorative factory in the domestic commemorative factory, that is, the production-oriented factory warehouse. Then the customer goes directly to the place where the goods are picked up. That is, the production enterprise of the Gold Power Plant brand. For imported sponges, it is delivered by the trade-oriented factory warehouse. Then its place of delivery is the warehouse designated by the factory warehouse. Usually, we will designate a warehouse in the exchange to pick up the goods. To sum up, the delivery of sponges is only allowed in the factory warehouse. If the delivery is only allowed in the factory warehouse, it can be delivered by the production-oriented warehouse, and then the imported sponges can be delivered by the trade-oriented warehouse. Just now I introduced some systems and delivery methods related to the delivery of Guangzhou automobile anchor, such as the delivery brand. For example, I listed the delivery warehouse, which is the main body of the application for delivery qualification, related to the delivery of Guangzhou Automobile Group boba. For example, the electrostatic field in the gold power plant can apply for the registered brand of Guangzhou Automobile Group. At the same time, it can also apply for the production-oriented factory warehouse. Domestic traders and consumer enterprises can apply to become the trade-oriented warehouse and overseas commemorative factory of Guangzhou Automobile Group. If it is not in the parent brand certification list, it can separately apply to become the registered brand of Guangzhou Automobile Group. Warehousing enterprises and banks can apply to become the delivery warehouse of Guangzhou Automobile Group. If the inspection institution has the ability to inspect precious metals, it can apply to become the designated inspection institution for quality inspection of Guangzhou Automobile Group. I am often asked a question in the process of research. That is, when Guangzhou Automobile Group's BOBA transaction, how is the invoice issued? In the final delivery link of Guangzhou Automobile Group's BOBA futures, the invoice is issued directly by the seller to the buyer's exchange, and the seller is directly issued to the buyer without participating in the invoicing process. After the delivery, after the seller issues the invoice to the buyer, we will transfer part of the money to the seller, put it in the exchange to ensure that the seller has issued the invoice to the buyer, and then transfer 20% of the payment to the seller, so as to ensure that the invoice is indeed issued to the buyer and has been received. This is a description of the situation of invoicing, and then the delivery time is divided into two kinds. What about entering the contract month? After the delivery month, the seller can apply to the exchange for delivery on each trading day, and the exchange will organize the matching, and then deliver. After the closing of the last trading day, if there are still open contracts, then the exchange will also organize centralized delivery, such as this 2408 contract. If it is the first trading day in August, then the seller can start. If there are warehouse receipts and positions, it can submit the delivery application to the exchange until the 10th trading day in August, if there are still open contracts. All open contracts have entered a centralized delivery period. The whole delivery period is about 3 days. That is, after matching. It will take about 3 working days to complete the delivery process. Finally, the delivery system needs to explain the delivery unit and the half-fork delivery unit. In the contract table, it was just introduced that it was 5 kilograms. Every 5 kilograms, our customers who are familiar with us should know that it was actually 6 kilograms when we asked for advice in the early stage. At that time, the consideration of setting 6 kilograms was to consider that the international community allowed 1 to 6 kilograms of deposit to be delivered. But after our research, we found that in the domestic market, in fact, the specification of 6 kilograms is relatively rare, because we also introduced sponge peptide, and 5 kilograms is sponge peptide, which is a very commonly used packaging. At the same time, in order to take into account the different weight specifications of the sponge, our current plan is to put the weight of each first warehouse receipt of the delivery unit, because we allow 2 forms of metal to enter the delivery. So the warehouse receipt is also divided into 2 kinds. That is, you are all warehouse receipts registered by ingots, and warehouse receipts injected by sponge peptide. We require that the delivery specifications should not be less than 500 grams, and the delivery specifications of sponge titanium should not be less than 1 kilogram. If it is a registered warehouse receipt, it should not exceed the range of plus or minus 10%, because it is in the process of casting. Especially for imported orders, it has a certain tolerance range. Setting 10% is also a section of sponge warehouse receipts that draws on some relevant experience of international exchanges. One end is 0.1%, because the weight of the sponge itself can be controlled very accurately. The pound difference is currently set at 0.2 grams. If it is within the range of the pound difference, it will be put into storage according to the weight on the declaration list. In the last part, I will briefly introduce a risk control system of boba. The daily price limit is 4% in the general month, and then we will increase it by 2% to 6% in the next month. We have also made a study of the price fluctuation of boba in the past few years. The current 4% and 6% can cover more than 9,094% of the daily price fluctuation. For the margin, we set the margin according to different stages. This requirement is divided into 3 stages. The proportion of the margin in the general month is 5%. From the 15th trading day of the month before the delivery month, the margin ratio will be increased to 10%. After entering the delivery month, the proportion will be further increased to 20%. Simply speaking, the proportion of the margin will be gradually increased as it gets closer to delivery. The position limit is the same as the margin. We divide it into 3 stages and set the position limit according to different time periods. In general, the position limit level is about 300 or more, that is, 300 kilograms. Then 1 month before the delivery month. From the 15th trading day, the position limit will be reduced to 90 hands, that is, 90 kilograms. After entering the delivery month, the position limit will be 30 kilograms, that is, 30 hands. If you feel that this scale is not enough, this industry customer can apply to the exchange for an additional hedging quota. You can apply for a position exemption quota. We will give you a bigger introduction of a relatively complete draft of the current Guangqi boba futures. Finally, our current plan is not the final plan. It is being continuously updated and improved. So we also welcome friends from the industry and experts to give us some advice so that we can further improve the contract. Okay, thank you.